The moment Lorraine spoke those words, the air in the room grew thick with tension. A baby at your age? Don't you think you're a bit too old for that? Her lips curled into a condescending smile, and I felt the warmth drain from my body. Derek shifted uncomfortably in his seat, his eyes darting between his mother and me. Cora, our 10-year-old daughter, stared wide-eyed, sensing the sudden shift in the atmosphere. Mom, Evelyn and I have discussed this thoroughly. We're both excited and prepared for this new addition to our family. Derek's voice wavered, a feeble attempt to defuse the situation. Lorraine scoffed, her gaze fixed on me with a mixture of disdain and pity. Prepared? Evelyn can barely handle the one child she has. I shudder to think how she'll manage with another. My hands trembled as I clenched the napkin in my lap, struggling to maintain composure. I appreciate your concern, Lorraine, but Derek and I have made our decision. We're overjoyed to be expecting another child, and we would appreciate your support during this special time. Lorraine's eyes narrowed, and she leaned back in her chair, shaking her head slowly. Support? From what I've seen, you'll need more than just support, dear. You're in over your head, and this family is heading down a treacherous path. Derek's face flushed with anger, but before he could respond, Cora spoke up. Grandma, that's not a very nice thing to say. Mom and Dad are excited, and I'm looking forward to having a little brother or sister. Lorraine's gaze shifted to Cora, her expression softening ever so slightly. Oh, sweetie, you'll understand when you're older. Sometimes dreams and realities don't align, no matter how badly we want them to. I felt a lump forming in my throat, the weight of Lorraine's words suffocating me. This was supposed to be a joyous occasion, a celebration of new life and the love Derek and I shared. But Lorraine's disapproval cast a dark shadow over the evening, a harbinger of the challenges that lay ahead. As the dinner progressed, Lorraine's barbs continued, each one sharper than the last. I tried to deflect them with polite responses, but her relentless onslaught chipped away at my resolve. Derek attempted to intervene, but Lorraine's words seemed to flow like venom, poisoning the atmosphere with doubt and uncertainty. By the time dessert arrived, the tension had become unbearable. Cora, sensing the hostility, excused herself from the table, her usually vibrant demeanor dampened by the evening's events. Lorraine leaned back, her arms folded across her chest, a smug expression on her face. Well, I've said my piece. It's up to you two to decide how to proceed, but don't say I didn't warn you. Derek's jaw clenched, and he met his mother's gaze with a stern look. Mom, Evelyn and I have made our decision. We're having this baby, and we'd appreciate your support, not your judgment. Lorraine's lips twisted into a mirthless smile. Support? You'll have my support when you start making sensible choices, not reckless ones driven by fleeting emotions. With those parting words, she rose from the table and left the room, leaving Derek and me to grapple with the aftermath of her scathing remarks. As I sat there, stunned and shaken, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was merely the beginning, the opening salvo in a battle I never saw coming. Little did I know, Lorraine's disapproval was just the tip of the iceberg, and the true depths of her manipulative nature were yet to be revealed. The days following that fateful dinner crawled by, each one more tense than the last. Derek and I attempted to move past Lorraine's scathing comments, but her words lingered like a dark cloud, casting a shadow over our joy. Then, one evening, the doorbell rang, and my life took an unexpected turn. Evelyn, dear, would you mind getting that? Lorraine called from the living room, her voice sickly sweet. Thus, perplexed, I made my way to the front door and opened it, only to find Lorraine's smiling face greeting me from the other side, surrounded by a mountain of luggage. What's all this? I asked, my heart sinking as realization dawned. Didn't Derek tell you? Lorraine breezed past me, leaving a trail of suitcases in her wake. I'm moving in! My mouth hung open, but before I could protest, Derek emerged from the kitchen, his expression a mix of guilt and resignation. Evelyn, Mom's not been feeling well lately. She needs our help, and with the baby on the way, it makes sense for her to stay with us for a while. Lorraine clasped her hands together, her eyes glistening with false sincerity. That's right, dear. I wouldn't want to be a burden, but in my condition, I simply can't manage on my own. I shot Derek a disbelieving look, but he avoided my gaze, seemingly resigned to his mother's intrusion. Don't worry, Evelyn, Lorraine cooed, resting a bony hand on my arm. I'll be here to lend a helping hand, especially when the little one arrives." Her words dripped with condescension, and I fought the urge to recoil from her touch. In the days that followed, Lorraine's presence became suffocating. She inserted herself into every aspect of our lives, offering unsolicited advice and criticism at every turn. "Evelyn, are you sure that's a balanced meal for the baby?" she'd tsk, eyeing my plate with disdain. Or, "You really should take it easy, dear. Wouldn't want to overexert yourself and put the little one at risk." Her constant undermining wore me down, and I found myself second-guessing every decision, no matter how trivial. Derek, bless his heart, tried to placate me, assuring me that his mother meant well, but I could see the doubt creeping into his eyes, the seeds of Lorraine's manipulation taking root. The final straw came one evening when I overheard Lorraine whispering to Cora, her voice low and conspiratorial. "Your mother means well, sweetie, but she's in over her head. With another baby on the way, things are going to get even harder for her. You'll have to be extra helpful, understand?" Cora nodded solemnly, her eyes wide with concern, and my heart shattered. I burst into the room, fury coursing through my veins. "How dare you fill her head with such nonsense?" Lorraine feigned innocence, her eyes widening in mock surprise. "Evelyn, I was merely trying to prepare Cora for the changes ahead. You know how challenging it can be juggling multiple children." "No, you were undermining me, just like you've been doing from the moment you stepped foot in this house." I spat, my hands trembling with rage. Derek rushed in, his brow furrowed with concern. "What's going on here?" Lorraine turned to him, her expression one of wounded pride. "Derek, your wife seems to have misunderstood my intentions. I only want what's best for this family." I opened my mouth to protest, but Derek held up a hand, silencing me. "Mom, maybe it's best if you give us some space for a while," he said, his voice strained. Lorraine's face fell, but she nodded obediently. "Of course, son. I'll stay out of your way." With one last pointed look in my direction, she retreated to her room, leaving a heavy silence in her wake. As I stood there, my heart pounding, I knew this was only the beginning. Lorraine's manipulative claws were sinking deeper and deeper into our lives, and I had to find a way to stop her before she tore my family apart. In the days following Lorraine's arrival, the tension in our home was palpable. Derek and I tiptoed around each other, the weight of her presence suffocating our once happy household. Cora, sensing the discord, retreated into herself, her usual bubbly demeanor replaced by a somber quietness. It was during one of those strained silences that I stumbled upon a scene that would forever change the course of our lives. I had just returned from the grocery store, my arms laden with bags, when I heard hushed voices coming from Cora's room. Concerned, I crept closer, straining to make out the words. "Your mother is struggling, sweetie," Lorraine's voice whispered, laced with false sympathy. "With another baby on the way, things are going to be even harder for her." My heart sank, recognizing the familiar refrain of her manipulative tactics. "But Grandma," Cora protested, her voice small and uncertain, "Mom seems happy about the baby. She says it's a blessing." "Oh, honey, your mother puts on a brave face, but deep down, she's overwhelmed." Lorraine's tone was sickly sweet, like poisoned honey. "She's in over her head, and it's going to fall on you to step up and be the strong one." I couldn't bear to hear another word. Pushing open the door, I fixed Lorraine with a withering glare, my hands trembling with rage. "How dare you fill her head with such lies?" I spat, my voice quivering with barely contained fury. Lorraine's eyes widened in mock surprise, her lips parting in a theatrical gasp. "Evelyn, I was merely trying to prepare Cora for the challenges ahead." "By undermining me?" I growled, taking a step forward. "By poisoning her mind against her own mother?" Cora shrank back, her eyes brimming with tears, and a pang of guilt lanced through me. "Sweetheart, go to your room," I said, softening my tone. "Grandma and I need to have a little chat." Cora scurried out, leaving Lorraine and me alone, the air thick with tension. "Well?" I demanded, planting my hands on my hips. "What do you have to say for yourself?" Lorraine's expression hardened, her false veneer cracking to reveal the cruel, calculating woman beneath. "I'm merely trying to protect this family, Evelyn. Someone has to be the voice of reason." "By turning my own daughter against me?" I spat, incredulous. "By filling her head with doubts and fears?" "I'm doing what's necessary," Lorraine hissed, her eyes narrowing to slits. You're clearly in over your head, and someone needs to prepare Cora for the inevitable fallout. The only fallout will be your departure from this house, I snarled, my hands clenching into fists. I won't have you poisoning my family with your toxicity any longer. Lorraine's lips curled into a cruel sneer. And where will you go, Evelyn? This is my son's home, and I have every right to be here, whether you like it or not. Her words hit me like a physical blow, and for a moment I faltered, the weight of her truth sinking in. This was Derek's childhood home, and as his mother, she held a certain power, a certain sway that I could never match. But then I caught a glimpse of Cora's tear-stained face peeking out from her bedroom door, and a newfound resolve took hold. Not for long, I growled, meeting Lorraine's icy stare with a blazing one of my own. Not if I have anything to say about it. From that moment on, I knew the battle lines had been drawn. Lorraine's manipulative claws had sunk too deep, and the only way to protect my family was to pry them loose, no matter how painful the process might be. This was no longer about petty slights or differences of opinion. This was a war for the soul of my family, and I would stop at nothing to emerge victorious. From that fateful confrontation onward, a silent war raged within the walls of our home. Lorraine's venomous whispers continued, her barbs carefully aimed to undermine my every move, to sow seeds of doubt in Derek and Cora's minds. "Evelyn, are you sure that's wise?" she'd eyeing my choices with thinly veiled disdain. "In your condition, perhaps it's best to take it easy." Or, "Derek, have you considered hiring some extra help? Evelyn's plate seems quite full these days." Her words dripped with condescension, each one a calculated strike designed to chip away at my confidence, to paint me as a fragile, incapable mother-to-be. At first, I tried to brush off her comments, forcing a polite smile and assuring Derek that I had everything under control. But as the weeks ticked by, I could see the doubt creeping into his eyes, the seeds of Lorraine's manipulation taking root. It was during one of our rare moments alone that I finally broached the subject, my heart pounding with a mixture of anger and trepidation. "Derek, we need to talk about your mother," I began, my voice trembling ever so slightly. He sighed, rubbing his temples wearily. "Evelyn, I know she can be a handful, but she means well." "Means well?" I repeated, incredulous. "Derek, she's systematically undermining me at every turn, filling your head and Cora's with doubts about my capabilities as a mother." His brow furrowed, and for a moment I thought I saw a flicker of understanding in his eyes. "Look, I know she can be a bit overbearing, but she's just concerned for our well-being," he said, his tone placating. "Once the baby's born and she sees how well you're handling things, she'll back off." I shook my head, frustration welling up inside me. "You don't understand, Derek. This isn't just some harmless nagging. She's deliberately trying to undermine me, to turn you and Cora against me." Derek's expression hardened, and he drew back, his shoulders tensing. "That's a pretty serious accusation, Evelyn. Do you have any proof of this supposed undermining?" His words stung, but they also ignited a spark of determination within me. If Derek needed proof, then proof is what I would give him. From that moment on, I became a silent observer, meticulously documenting every snide remark, every backhanded comment that slipped from Lorraine's lips. I jotted down dates, times, and verbatim quotes, compiling a dossier of her manipulative behavior. The evidence piled up quickly, each entry a damning testament to Lorraine's true nature. I captured her whispering doubts to Cora, planting seeds of anxiety about my ability to handle the new baby. I recorded her offhand remarks to Derek, subtly suggesting that I was in over my head, that he might need to take on more responsibilities. With each new entry, my anger and resolve grew stronger. I was determined to make Derek see the truth, to strip away Lorraine's false veneer of concern and expose the toxic, manipulative core that lay beneath. And then, one fateful evening, the perfect opportunity presented itself. Lorraine had been particularly vicious that day, her barbs slicing deeper than usual, leaving me raw and on edge. As Derek and I sat down to dinner, the tension was palpable, Lorraine's presence a dark cloud looming over us. It was then that I made my move, sliding the meticulously compiled dossier across the table toward Derek. "What's this?" he asked, his brow furrowing as he flipped through the pages. "Proof," I said, my voice steely with determination. "Proof of the manipulative games your mother has been playing. The lies she's been spreading about me. Derek's eyes widened as he scanned the entries, his expression shifting from confusion to disbelief to dawning realization. Lorraine, sensing the shift in the atmosphere, tried to intervene. "Derek, darling, surely you don't believe these ridiculous accusations." But Derek held up a hand, silencing her. As our eyes met, I saw a newfound understanding in his gaze, a recognition of the truth I had been trying so desperately to convey. In that moment, I knew the tides had turned. The battle was far from over, but armed with the truth, I was finally on the offensive, ready to fight for my family's well-being with every ounce of strength I possessed. The tension in the air was palpable, the silence stretching out like a taut wire ready to snap at any moment. Derek's knuckles were white, his fingers clenched around the damning dossier I had compiled, a physical manifestation of Lorraine's betrayal. Lorraine, for her part, maintained a facade of indignation, her eyes narrowing as she fixed me with a withering glare. "Derek, you can't possibly believe these outrageous accusations," she scoffed, her voice dripping with disdain. Derek's jaw tightened, and he met her gaze with a steely resolve I had rarely seen before. "These are your words, Mom. Your actions, documented meticulously by Evelyn." Lorraine's mask slipped ever so slightly, a flicker of uncertainty crossing her features. "I was merely trying to prepare you both for the challenges ahead," she insisted, her tone taking on a pleading edge. "You know how demanding a newborn can be, especially with another child in the mix. By undermining my wife?" Derek shot back, his voice laced with barely contained fury. "By poisoning Cora's mind against her own mother?" Cora, who had been silent throughout the confrontation, flinched at the mention of her name. Her eyes darted between Derek and me, wide with confusion and fear. Lorraine seized the opportunity, her expression morphing into one of maternal concern. "Sweetie, you know Grandma only wants what's best for you and the family." "Don't," I warned, my voice low and dangerous. "Don't you dare try to manipulate her again." Lorraine's gaze snapped back to me, her eyes blazing with contempt. "And what will you do to stop me, Evelyn? This is my son's home, and I have every right to be here, whether you like it or not." The air crackled with tension, the weight of her words hanging heavy in the charged atmosphere. For a moment, doubt crept into my mind, the fear that she might be right, that she held an unbreakable power over this household. But then, I caught a glimpse of Cora's pale, frightened face, and a surge of protective fury washed over me. This was my family, my home, and I would be damned if I let Lorraine's toxicity continue to poison it. "Get out," I growled, taking a step forward, my hands clenched into trembling fists. "Get out of our home and stay away from my family." Lorraine's eyes widened, her composure cracking as she realized the full weight of the situation. "Derek, you can't let her speak to me this way. I'm your mother." Derek's expression was unreadable as he turned to face her, his grip tightening around the dossier. "These are your own words, Mom, your own actions, laid bare, and as much as it pains me to say it, Evelyn is right. You've crossed a line, and I can't stand by and let you continue to undermine and manipulate my family." Lorraine's mouth opened and closed, her eyes darting between us, searching for any shred of sympathy, any foothold to regain control of the situation. But she found none, only the steely resolve of a united front, a family she had pushed too far. "Fine," she spat, her voice trembling with barely contained rage. "If that's how you want to play it, so be it. But mark my words, you'll regret this. You'll all regret this." With those parting words, she turned on her heel and stormed out of the room, the echoes of her footsteps thundering like a harbinger of the storm to come. In the aftermath of her departure, a heavy silence descended upon us, the weight of the confrontation hanging thick in the air. Cora clung to Derek, her small frame trembling with residual fear and confusion. As for me, a strange calm settled over my being. The battle had been waged, lines drawn in the sand, and though the war was far from over, I knew that we had taken the first crucial steps toward reclaiming our lives, our home, and our family. The road ahead would be long and arduous, but with Derek by my side and the truth laid bare, I felt a newfound strength, a determination to see this through to the bitter end. No matter the cost. In the days following Lorraine's explosive departure, an uneasy calm settled over our household. Derek and I tiptoed around each other, the echoes of her parting words still ringing in our ears. "You'll all regret this." Cora, bless her heart, tried to maintain a sense of normalcy, but I could see the fear lingering in her eyes, the weight of her grandmother's toxic influence still looming large. As for me, I remained vigilant, my senses heightened to the slightest hint of Lorraine's return. I knew her too well to believe that she would simply slink away, her manipulative claws relinquishing their grip so easily. Sure enough, the other shoe dropped one evening, as Derek and I were winding down from a long day. "Evelyn, we need to talk," he said, his expression grave. My heart sank, and I braced myself for the worst. "What is it?" Derek sighed, rubbing his temples warily. "It's my mother. She's retained a lawyer and is threatening legal action." I felt the blood drain from my face, a cold chill of dread washing over me. "Legal action? On what grounds? She claims we've abandoned her, neglected her in her time of need," Derek explained, his voice strained. "She's using her supposed health issues as leverage, arguing that we violated our familial obligations by kicking her out." Fury bubbled up inside me, hot and viscous. "That manipulative old bat," I spat, my hands clenching into fists. "She's twisting the truth, playing the victim card to try and regain control." Derek's expression hardened, a flicker of resolve igniting in his eyes. "I know Evelyn, and I won't let her get away with it." From that moment on, we launched into a strategic counteroffensive, determined to dismantle Lorraine's manipulative ploy and protect our family once and for all. First, we sought legal counsel of our own, a no-nonsense attorney named Rebecca Stern. As I laid out the sordid tale of Lorraine's machinations, her face remained impassive, but I could see the gears turning behind her steely gaze. "Leave it to me," she said, her voice laced with quiet confidence. "I'll make sure your mother-in-law's ploy unravels faster than a cheap sweater." True to her word, Rebecca went to work, meticulously dismantling Lorraine's case piece by piece. She subpoenaed medical records, financial documents, and even sought statements from friends and neighbors, anything to corroborate our side of the story and expose Lorraine's true motives. Meanwhile, Derek and I braced ourselves for the inevitable onslaught of Lorraine's vitriol, her desperate attempts to regain control through manipulation and guilt-tripping. "How could you do this to your own mother?" she wailed over the phone, her voice dripping with false anguish. "After everything I've sacrificed for this family." But we remained steadfast, our resolve bolstered by the truth and the knowledge that we were fighting for the well-being of our family. The final nail in Lorraine's coffin came when Rebecca unearthed a damning piece of evidence. A recorded conversation between Lorraine and a friend in which she openly admitted to her true intentions. "I'll bleed them dry if I have to," Lorraine's voice crackled through the speaker, cold and calculating. "Derek and that wretched wife of his will learn not to cross me." Armed with this smoking gun, Rebecca marched into the courtroom with the confidence of a lioness, her sharp mind and sharper tongue eviscerating Lorraine's case with surgical precision. In the end, the judge's ruling was swift and unequivocal. Lorraine's claims were baseless, her alleged health issues a fabrication, and her attempts to regain control of our household through legal means were nothing more than a vindictive power play. As the gavel struck, sealing Lorraine's fate, a wave of relief washed over me. The battle was won. The manipulative claws that had threatened to tear my family apart finally pried loose. But as I glanced at Lorraine's face, contorted with rage and disbelief, I knew that this was merely the end of a chapter, not the end of the story. Her thirst for revenge would not be easily quenched, and the war for my family's peace was far from over. The courthouse steps were a battleground, the air thick with tension as Lorraine's rage boiled over in the wake of her crushing legal defeat. Her eyes burned with fury, her gaze fixed squarely on me, promising a storm of retribution. "This isn't over, Evelyn." She spat, her voice trembling with barely contained venom. "Not by a long shot." I met her stare with a steely resolve, unflinching in the face of her empty threats. "It's over, Lorraine. The judge has spoken, and your manipulative games have been exposed for what they truly are." Lorraine's lips curled into a snarl, her composure cracking under the weight of her humiliation. "You think you've won, don't you? That this pathetic little victory means you've beaten me?" Before I could respond, Derek stepped forward, his expression stern. "Enough, Mom. It's time for you to walk away, with whatever shred of dignity you have left." Lorraine's gaze snapped to her son, her eyes widening in disbelief. My own flesh and blood turning against me after everything I've sacrificed for this family. Derek's jaw tightened, his resolve unwavering. You sacrificed nothing, Mother. All you've done is spread toxicity and deceit, trying to manipulate us for your own selfish gains. Lorraine recoiled as if struck, her hand flying to her chest in a melodramatic display of wounded pride. How dare you speak to me this way? I am your mother, and you owe me your respect, your obedience. A derisive snort escaped my lips before I could stop it, and Lorraine's baleful glare swung back in my direction. You've corrupted him against me, you wretched woman, she hissed, taking a step forward, her finger jabbing the air in accusation. With your lies and your deception, you've turned my own son into a stranger. I straightened my spine, refusing to be cowed by her vitriol. I've done no such thing, Lorraine. The only deception here is the web of lies you've spun, trying to manipulate and control us for your own twisted ends. Lorraine's face contorted with rage, her composure shattering like fragile glass. You ungrateful, conniving little... Mom, that's enough. Derek's voice cracked like a whip, cutting through the venom-laced air. You've lost, plain and simple. The judge has ruled, and your campaign of manipulation and deceit has been exposed for all to see. Lorraine's mouth snapped shut, her eyes darting between us, searching for any remaining foothold, any shred of leverage she could cling to. But there was none, only the cold, hard truth staring back at her, a mirror reflecting the ugly reality of her actions. For a long moment, silence stretched between us, the weight of the confrontation hanging heavy in the air. Then, with a strangled sound that was half sob, half snarl, Lorraine turned on her heel and stalked away, her steps faltering and unsteady. As I watched her retreating form, a strange sense of finality washed over me. The battle had been won, the war finally at an end. Lorraine's toxic influence had been excised from our lives, her manipulative claws pried loose once and for all. But even as relief flooded through me, a small voice in the back of my mind whispered a warning. Lorraine's thirst for revenge would not be easily quenched. This victory, as sweet as it tasted, was merely a temporary reprieve, a fleeting calm before the next storm. As Derek and I turned to leave, Cora scurried up to us, her eyes wide with a mixture of relief and lingering fear. "Is it really over, Mommy?" she asked, her small hand slipping into mine. "Is Grandma gone for good?" I met her gaze, my heart swelling with a fierce surge of protective love. "For now, sweetheart. For now, we're safe." Pulling her close, I cast one final glance over my shoulder, half expecting to see Lorraine's vengeful form looming in the distance. But there was nothing, only the promise of a hard-won peace, however fleeting it might be. As we made our way home, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was merely the eye of the storm, a brief respite before Lorraine's wrath descended upon us once more. But for now, I would savor this victory, this moment of hard-earned tranquility, and steel myself for the battles yet to come. The weeks following Lorraine's explosive departure were a whirlwind of emotions, relief, trepidation, and a wary sense of peace. Derek and I walked on eggshells, waiting for the other shoe to drop, for Lorraine's vengeful wrath to descend upon us once more. But as the days ticked by and no retaliatory strikes materialized, a tentative calm began to settle over our household. Slowly, we allowed ourselves to breathe again, to revel in the newfound tranquility that had eluded us for far too long. Cora, bless her heart, was the first to embrace the change, her youthful resilience shining through like a beacon. The shadows of fear and uncertainty that had lingered in her eyes gradually dissipated, replaced by a rekindled sense of joy and wonder. "Mommy, can we bake cookies together?" she'd ask, her face alight with hope and childlike enthusiasm. Like we used to before. The unspoken weight of those words hung heavy in the air, a reminder of the dark cloud that had loomed over our family for far too long. But I would smile and nod, pulling her into a fierce embrace, silently vowing to cherish every moment of this hard-won peace. As for Derek and me, the healing process was slower, more arduous. The wounds inflicted by Lorraine's manipulation ran deep, and there were times when the lingering echoes of her vitriol threatened to reopen old scars. "Are you sure we're doing the right thing?" Derek would ask, his brow furrowed with doubt and residual guilt. She is my mother, after all. In those moments, I would take his hand, meeting his gaze with a steely resolve. "She made her choice, Derek, And we made ours, to protect our family, no matter the cost. His shoulders would sag, the weight of our shared burden momentarily lifting, and a flicker of understanding would pass between us, a silent acknowledgement of the trials we had endured and the strength we had found in our unity. As the weeks turned to months, the specter of Lorraine's looming presence gradually faded, replaced by a renewed sense of normalcy and a deeper appreciation for the simple joys we had once taken for granted. Family dinners became a cherished ritual once more, filled with laughter and stories instead of thinly veiled barbs and underhanded criticisms. Cora's laughter rang out uninhibited, her infectious spirit a balm for the wounds we had all endured. And through it all, Derek and I grew closer, our bond forged in the fires of adversity and tempered by the shared understanding that our love, our family, was worth fighting for, no matter the cost. It was on one such evening, as we sat around the dinner table, basking in the warmth of each other's company, that Derek reached across and took my hand, his eyes shining with a depth of emotion that left me breathless. "Evelyn," he began, his voice thick with emotion, "these past few months have been a whirlwind, a true test of our family's strength and resilience." Cora nodded solemnly, her hand finding mine and giving it a gentle squeeze. Derek's gaze flickered between us, his expression one of profound gratitude and love. "And through it all, you've been my rock, my unwavering pillar of strength. Without you, I don't know where we'd be right now." A lump formed in my throat, and I blinked back the tears that threatened to spill forth. "We've weathered the storm, my love," he continued, his grip tightening on my hand. "And as we move forward into this new chapter of our lives, I want you to know that I've never been more certain of my love for you, of the strength of our family." Cora beamed, her eyes shining with unabashed joy, and in that moment I knew that we had truly emerged from the darkness, reborn and resolute in our determination to create a life of peace and happiness, free from the toxic influence that had nearly torn us apart. As Derek leaned in to kiss me, sealing his vow with a tender embrace, I allowed myself to fully embrace the moment, to revel in the hard-won triumph of our united front against the forces that had sought to divide us. The road ahead would undoubtedly hold its share of challenges and obstacles, but armed with the strength of our love and the unwavering bonds of our family, I knew that we could weather any storm, overcome any adversity. For in that moment we were victorious, not just over Lorraine's manipulative machinations, but over the doubts and fears that had threatened to consume us. We had emerged from the crucible of familial strife, forged anew, our resolve tempered by the fires of adversity. And as we embraced the next chapter of our lives, one thing was certain: our family, our love, would reign supreme, an unbreakable bastion against the storms that lay ahead.